Hello friends, welcome back to the lectures of fluid mechanics. In the last lecture we have seen the concept of surface tension. How does that surface tension creates excess pressure inside a liquid droplet, inside a air bubble or say the gas bubble, inside a soap bubble or say the liquid jet. Then we have seen the concept of angle of contact for a solid liquid interface. And then we have seen the concept of capillary tube. What is a capillary tube? And capillarity action. How does the liquid level goes up into the capillary tube above the free liquid surface, or in some cases it may go down also below the free liquid surface. It depends upon the angle of contact of that particular capillary tube material and the liquid. I think we have seen the formula for the rise of liquid level into the capillary tube as twice of sigma into cosine of the angle theta divided by rho Rg. That's what the formula for the height of liquid level into the capillary tube, and hope you remember that I had drawn this figure. This is the capillary tube, and let's say this is the liquid level. And the liquid into the capillary tube was rising up to certain height, say up to here, and this height is indicated by the letter H over here, and the height of this liquid level into the capillary tube above the free liquid surface is given by this formula. H is equal to twice of sigma into cosine of angle theta divided by rho Rg, where sigma is the surface tension of that liquid, theta is the angle of contact for this liquid and this solid material interface. Whatever the material of this capillary tube is, maybe of fiber or the glass, steel, and whatever the liquid over here it is. So for this particular pair of liquid solid interface, whatever the angle of contact theta is, that theta is over here, divided by rho, that is the density of this liquid over here. R is the small r is the radius of this tube. Small r is the radius of this capillary tube. It's over here. And g is the acceleration due to gravity. So how they are related, that we have seen in the last lecture. In the last lecture itself, I told you that there is one more concept remaining, and that is related to this formula and the capillary tube. Now, whatever the liquid solid interface is there, whatever the angle of contact theta is there, and for that particular combination, we will be getting the height of liquid level into the capillary tube as H is equals to 2 sigma cos of theta upon rho Rg. But if I take down the same capillary tube made up of the same material, same diameter or radius, and put it into the same liquid of same rho, that is the density, and at the same place, obviously G will be the same, but with such a position that I am going to keep this capillary tube at such a position that the overall height of the capillary tube above the free liquid surface is less than the rise of liquid level into the capillary tube that we are getting with the aid of this formula, right? So you may think that the liquid level into this capillary tube should rise up as the tube is of the same radius as that of this tube. Perhaps the tube is being the same. This is the first case, and in the next case I have lowered the height of the tube. So the radius is same, material is same, so the angle of contact theta should be also same. Liquid is also same, so sigma, that is surface tension, and density of the liquid will be the same, and rho g are also same. So in this position also, the height of liquid level into this capillary tube should go up to this height H, which should be up to here. It means that the liquid level into the capillary tube should rise up to this height, But the problem over here in second case is that the total height of the capillary tube is not up to that level, it is up to here only. Then what should happen, or so what can probably happen? So you may think that the water should reach up to this height, and with the intention to reach up to that particular height H, the water should come out of the capillary tube, and as there is no capillary tube material as such over there into this space, so water can't rise up, so it should fall down due to the gravity. So the water should come out of the capillary tube and should fall down over here. Now this should be the continuous process. I mean, everything is same, no change in any parameter into this equation. So for this liquid, this liquid should reach up to this particular height, but it can't reach since there is no tube over here. So the water cannot climb up anything. So here there was a tube so as to climb up the tube, but over here there is no tube into this region, so water will tend to climb up, but there is no tube over here, so it should fall down. Again the lower region, water into this tube will come up and will try to climb up, but there is no tube over here, it should fall down. It should again fall down. So this process is continued. It means that the water should fall out of the capillary tube like a fountain. And this is a cyclic process. This is going to be a cyclic process. There is no reason to stop the flow of liquid from the tube to the outside. Now, if this is going to happen, if it happens so, then this is, I will say, see, we have not fitted any kind of pump or say any kind of external agency so as to provide some work done or say the energy to this particular system to lift up the water or whatever the liquid up into the tube and allow it to fall down again, and it is cyclic, it is repeated again and again. So if there is no agency to provide the work done, but still there is somewhat mechanical work is done, since the waters get lifted up, there is a rise in the potential energy. So if it is happening continuously, I will say for this particular region, or say if I consider this as the control volume, I will say this particular device will violate the first law of thermodynamics, or this is the violation of the law of conservation of energy. Without absorbing, without consuming any kind of energy, it is continuously giving out some other form of energy, that is the mechanical work. There is a somewhat gain in the potential energy of the water. So it is obvious thing that it is not going to be a possible case. ये ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. This is not at all possible. Since no one device can violate the first law of thermodynamics, also the law of conservation of energy. Then what's going wrong? What must be going wrong so that we are coming to this conclusion? Now let us see what is going wrong in this one, or say what physical parameters can change into this particular system, right? Now I would like to redraw the figure. Into this case, say I would like to highlight this much part only over here, and if I highlight that much part, so the enlarged view of the capillary tube is over here. This is the tube, and the level of liquid is say from here up to here, and this is the spherical surface, right? And this is what the height we have mentioned, that is h. That is h, and here is the liquid. Now if you observe this tube and this particular free surface inside the capillary tube, you will observe that this is capillary tube and this is the top end of the capillary tube. The radius of this capillary tube is over here, that is small r. The radius of the capillary tube is smaller, that I have already mentioned over here. This is simply the enlarged view of this region. Now if you look at the free liquid surface inside the capillary tube, it is a curved surface, not exactly the flat surface. The reason is the water will try to climb up the walls of the inner walls of the capillary tube, and that's the reason the surface is becoming curved. Now this surface is approximately a spherical surface. It is like a sphere. So if I try to locate the center point of this sphere, you may get the center point maybe somewhere over here. The center point of this particular spherical surface may be somewhere over here. So this is the center point, and the radius of curvature of this curve is, let us say, r, and that r is going to be over here. This is going to be r. This is the radius r, right? Now remember that this capital R is the radius of the spherical curvature, whereas this small r is the radius of this capillary tube, and I think that radius will be over here. This is small r, right? Now here I would like to draw the tangent to the curvature of the free liquid surface. If I draw the tangent to the curvature of free liquid surface, here it will be the tangent, here will be the tangent. So this is t dash is the tangent. Now we have already seen in the last lecture, this is the angle of contact theta. The angle of contact of this liquid solid interface is theta over here. Now if this is theta, I think this is the spherical surface, this is the radius, this is the tangent. So this totally, this has to be 90 degree. So out of that 90, this is 90 degree, and this horizontal R and this vertical surface is also 90. So this angle is theta. So also this angle is 90 minus theta. So this also has to be theta. So the angle over here has to be theta. And this is the base of this triangle. So like ABC. The triangle ABC, the base of the triangle ABC, where base is BC and that is equal to R, small r, which is the radius of the capillary tube. The height of the triangle is AB and the hypotenuse is AC, that is equal to R, that is the radius of this spherical surface. So out of this, from this figure, it is clear that I can write down the equation for small r. Small r will be equals to R cos theta. R cos of theta. And we are having this equation, that is rise of liquid level into the capillary tube is given by H. Now I would like to use that equation, that small h is equals to height of liquid level into the capillary tube is given by twice of sigma into cos of theta whole divided by rho rg. So out of this, small r, which is the radius of the capillary tube, I would like to replace it by this small r, that is equal to capital R into cos of theta. So what equation I will get is small h is equal to twice of sigma cos of theta divided by rho. Now small r is get replaced by this term, that is r cos theta. So r cos of theta into the term g. So out of that, I think this cos theta will be get cancelled. This cos theta will be get cancelled. And what equation we are getting is this h is equals to twice of sigma upon rho capital R into g, where this term capital R, remember that capital R is not the radius of the capillary tube, but is the radius of the spherical curvature of the free liquid surface. Now from this equation, it appears to be like this height of liquid level into the capillary tube is going to become independent of cos of theta. But in another way, if I look at this R from this equation, I can say that small h is inversely proportional to R. So more is the radius of curvature of this free liquid surface, spherical surface, less will be the height. Now imagine that the tube is of this much height only. I mean, there is no tube as such above it. I mean, there is no capillary tube as such above this region. So in that case, what is going to happen? The liquid will try to rise up as per our general consideration. The liquid into this region, into this tube, will try to rise up to reach this particular height. While the liquid is rising up, the curvature will get shifted up. This is the point B over here. The curvature of this liquid surface will get shifted up and it will become something like this. Okay, again it tries to reach H, again the curvature will become like this. I mean, the liquid level will tries to go up and up. Now the moment when the curvature is shifting up and up, you can clearly understand that the center point of this curvature is shifting up and up, and the radius R is also increasing. R is continuously increasing. If the center point of this curvature is get shifted, if the liquid level is going up, the center point of this curvature will goes up and R will also goes up. Goes up means the value of R will increase. As the R is increasing, the height above that level will decrease. And that's what the relation is. Finally, if the liquid want to fall down in this way, first of all this curvature has to come up and should match this point B. And if this curvature is coming till that point B, then the radius R will become equals to infinity. This R, see, this curvature is get lifted up, curvature will become more and more flat, and radius R will go on higher side, and finally it is going to become infinity. If the curvature of liquid is exactly horizontal, then R will be infinity. If R is infinity, if R is tending to infinity, the height of liquid column into it will tend to 0. I mean above that level, and that is the reason liquid into the capillary tube, which is of the height less than this small h, will not go up to that height, but it will come till here and will stop. And there is no there is no fountain kind of thing that will happen over here. So this is one way in which we can explain why the water will not come out of that capillary tube, right? In another way, we can explain this phenomena in another way also, just by following the formula of H. That is, I'd like to show you that part also. In another way, it can be explained as, see, this height of liquid level into the capillary tube is equals to twice of sigma into cos of theta upon rho Rg. So it is clear that H is proportional to cosine of angle theta. So if this is the case, as I already explained, how does this capital R varies and how does water stops at this level. In another way, I can say, if the liquid level is going up and up and up, the tangent to this curvature at the point of contact over here will move in this way, this way, this way. I mean, this theta will go on increasing. Theta will go on increasing. If this curvature is lifted up, the radius will increase. The center point will get shifted up, and the tangent to the curvature, the angle over here, theta, will keep on increasing. Since this tangent will become little horizontal, little horizontal, little horizontal again, so theta will keep on increasing. If theta is increasing, and finally it will tend to reach the value 90 degree. That is, when this liquid level will go up to this top surface BC, then the time this tangent T dash will coincide with BC, and the angle of contact theta, actually it is not angle of contact, since angle of contact has a little different definition. Here it will be the angle made by the tangent to the curvature of the free liquid surface at the point of contact with the solid surface, and that theta will tend to equals to 90 degree. So in this case, if theta is tending to pi by 2 radian, the height will tends to become equals to 0, since cos of pi by 2, it is equals to 0, and that's the reason the height of liquid level above this level BC will be 0. So in two different ways we can, perhaps there is one more way in which we can explain this phenomena, but I think we should stick up our discussion till here only. Perhaps I will suggest you to find out another way to prove how that water can't flow out of the tube and will not form a fountain. So take on this question as a homework. We have seen the Newton's law of viscosity, and based upon the Newton's law of viscosity, we can classify fluids in different categories. What are these categories? That we will see. And the topic is rheology of the fluid. How does the fluid behaves? Various fluid behavior of various fluids, and the variation of shear stress of the fluid with respect to the term du by dy over here. Now we have already seen the Newton's law of viscosity, and that Newton's law of viscosity is tau is equals to mu into du by dy. Now there are some of the fluids which follows this equation. We say that fluid as the Newtonian fluid, and the fluid which do not follow that equation, that is Newton's law of viscosity, we say that fluid as the non-Newtonian fluid. Now we will see, now not simply Newtonian and non-Newtonian, there are some other types of fluids also that we will see with the aid of this variation of that shear stress into that fluid with respect to the velocity gradient. Hope you remember this term, that is du by dy, that is the velocity gradient, that is the rate of change of velocity with respect to the distance from the fixed layer, right? Now I would like to categorize this fluid in various ways. One is the first type of fluid. I would like to take down it over here. There are some fluids whose variation of shear stress with respect to the velocity gradient is something like this. I would like to name this fluid category as 1. Now this is the fluid category for which we can say this number 1 type of fluid whose slope is 0, that you can see the variation of shear stress with respect to the velocity gradient is almost there is no variation. The curvature is parallel to the x-axis. So this fluid, we say it has the ideal fluid. Ideal fluid. Now as we know, ideal fluid actually do not exist in reality. Ideal fluid is the fluid which has no viscosity, no surface tension, no compressibility. So such kind of fluid is known to be what? The ideal fluid. Now how that ideal fluid can be explained with the aid of Newton's law of viscosity, that I would like to take down. For ideal fluid, mu is equal to 0, that we know, that is the viscosity is 0. And if that is the case, we can say that for ideal fluid, tau is equals to mu into du by dy. So out of that, the viscosity, the dynamic viscosity of the ideal fluid itself is 0. So this is tending to 0. So obviously tau itself, as mu is equal to 0, so tau is also equal to 0. I repeat, for the ideal fluid, dynamic viscosity of the fluid mu is 0, and that is the reason tau, the shear stress between two fluid layers, is always 0, irrespective of what velocity gradient it has, and that you can verify from the graph. However higher the velocity gradient of that fluid is, the shear stress is always 0. So that's what the ideal fluid is. The second category of the fluid is the Newtonian fluid. So for the Newtonian fluid, the graph is something like this. I would like to number it as 2. Newtonian fluid, number 2, as Newtonian fluids are the fluids which follows the Newton's law of viscosity. It's over here. So it is clear this tau is equals to mu into du by dy. If we keep rest of the physical parameters constant, that is pressure, temperature and rest of the physical properties of the fluid constant, then I can say mu, that is the dynamic viscosity of the fluid, is constant. If I can say that if mu is equal to constant, then I can say that this tau is proportional to du by dy, that is the shear stress between the two fluid layers is directly proportional to the velocity gradient over there, and that is known to be what the Newtonian fluid is, right? And that's the reason, this is what basically, this is the Newton's law of viscosity, and as the fluids are following this particular law, and that's why we say these fluids have the Newtonian fluid, right? Some of the examples of these fluids are water, say like gases, in case of gases, air, or say the kerosene, the glycerin, so petrol. So these are what the Newtonian fluids which are following this equation. Now there is another category of the fluids, that is the non-Newtonian fluid. Non-Newtonian fluids. Non-Newtonian fluid means it's clear that the fluids which are not following this Newton's law of viscosity. It means that is tau is equals to, tau is not equals to mu into du by dy. It is not the case that mu is 0, mu has non-zero value, du by dy is also having non-zero value, but even the mu is being constant, I cannot say that shear stress is proportional to velocity gradient. So for the non-Newtonian fluid, shear stress is not proportional to the velocity gradient, but in different ways they are proportional. Here tau is equals to mu into du by dy to the power n. So that's what the equation, governing equation for the non-Newtonian fluid, and graphically they can be represented maybe something like this, say category 3 or say category 4 like this. So 3 and 4 both are non-Newtonian fluids. Numbered it as 3 over here, non-Newtonian fluids, and 4 is also non-Newtonian fluid. Now what curvature it will follow, it totally depends upon the power of du by dy, that is n over here, whether it is less than 1 or say less than 1 or greater than 1, that will decide whether it will follow this curvature or that curvature, right? So that's what the non-Newtonian fluid. Some examples of non-Newtonian fluid like milk, blood. So these are what the examples. Now the next category of the fluid is, say over here. say 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the fifth category. Now number 5 is ideal plastic. That is ideal plastic, or that is also known to be what? Bingham plastic. Bingham plastic. Now what is that fluid? You can see that for this fluid there is somewhat magnitude of the shear stress at the beginning itself when the velocity gradient is 0. It means for to have the velocity gradient or for to have the shear strain, there has to be a non-zero shear stress given to that fluid, then only it will start to deform. Then only the velocity gradient will be get introduced. And let's say that value is tau naught. If that is tau naught, then I can write down the equation for this curve number 5 as this tau is equals to the initial stress, that is yield stress, we say it as the yield stress tau naught, and after tau naught it follows the Newton's law of viscosity, that is du by dy. Right? So tau is equals to tau naught initial stress, also the yield stress, plus mu into du by dy, that is what here onwards it follows the Newton's law of viscosity. But initially for to have the flow into existence, see somewhat liquid is there, or liquid or gas, anything, and that is at rest, that is not moving. See, if any liquid or say gas is at rest, there is no velocity gradient as such. But the moment when it starts to flow, the velocity gradient will be get introduced. In a case if there is somewhat flow of water, for water to flow, the initial stress of the yield stress for the water is 0. I mean, when stress tau is 0, then the velocity gradient will be 0, and just the little small increment in the stress will give rise to some finite increment in the du by dy. But that is not the case for ideal plastic, also the Bingham plastic. For ideal plastic fluid, there is somewhat non-zero value of yield stress for the fluid. For example, if I give you the example, you will understand it. For example, the toothpaste, for example, the slurry, the mud. For mud, also little thick mud, also the toothpaste you can take down. Toothpaste you can easily resemble with this equation. Toothpaste, if you take it by its own, it will not flow, since somewhat initial yield stress has to be given to that paste, and once that initial, if the stress in between two fluid layer is more than this, then onwards it will start to flow. I mean, then onwards there will be velocity gradient. So that's what the ideal plastic is. And the sixth one is ideal solid. For ideal solid, the curvature will be somewhere over here. For ideal solid, the curvature will be over here. This is the ideal solid. This is number 6. For ideal solid, you can say that for ideal solid, du by dy has the value 0 always. However, higher is the magnitude of the shear stress acting onto it. There is no shear strain at all. We can say ideal solid as the rigid body as the ideal solid. Since however high the magnitude of the shear stress acting onto it, there is no shear strain in it. So that's what du by dy is always 0 for the ideal solid. So this is what the rheological diagram for the fluids. Now I would like to give you one small homework. You list out at least 5 examples of each category of fluid over here. For each category of fluid, list out at least 5 examples and write it down into your notebook. Right? So let us move on to the next topic. The next topic is continuum. Now we'll see what is this continuum means. Now for the fluids, fluid like any fluid, let us say liquid or gases. Now for liquids we can easily consider the liquid as a continuum. Continuum, the meaning of continuum means it is a continuous one, continuous, without break, without separation. For example, if I take down some water into the beaker or say any vessel over here. Now the fluid is continuum means what? Every molecule is close to one another and the fluid is continuous, there is no breakdown. It is not the case that there is one molecule over here, another molecule over here and some other molecules over here. They are separated out. Since the physical property of every molecule or say the droplet may vary with respect to its position, maybe it's some velocity or say the energy levels or say the temperature may vary. So for that we need to consider the fluid as a kind of a continuum, that is a continuous matter. Now under what condition we can consider as continuum, or why do we need to introduce the concept of continuum itself? That we'll see. And under what condition we cannot say the fluid as a continuum or say it is not continuous. So that condition also we will see. Now this is applicable especially in case of gases. For the gases, if I take down a container, say this is a container and this container contains some gas, say like air. Say take down air, say like atmospheric air itself. Consider this classroom as a container over here, right? This classroom is a container carrying somewhat fluid, that is air, and the air molecules are over here. So here are the air molecules. So here are the air molecules which are randomly placed and randomly moving here to there with any random velocity and in any direction. There is no control onto these molecules. So the velocity of these molecules is decided by the temperature. The number density of these molecules is decided by the pressure. So here there are large number of molecules. How much large? Maybe in terms of in billion, trillion. Don't know. If there is 1 mole of a gas, then there will be about 6.022 into 10 to the power 23 number of molecules present in 1 mole of a gas. Now for this region, for this particular gas, if I try to get one particular physical property like density, how density is defined? The term density is nothing but the mass per unit volume. So that's what the definition of the density of the mass density we have already seen. Now if I take down the density of this gas, then I will say the total mass of this gas divided by the total volume. But if I take down the density of a very small element of the fluid inside it, for that I need to consider a small elemental volume. Say that small elemental volume over here is, say the small elemental volume is, if I take down small elemental volume, then say this much is the small elemental volume. Say this is the spherical volume over here, right? It's a small sphere of a small volume, let us say delta V. Delta V is the volume of that elemental volume space over here. Now the mass of the molecules over here is select delta M. Now if I want to define the term density for this fluid element over here into this much region, then I need to define it in another way, that is density rho as equals to, it is delta M, the mass of the fluid inside that volume divided by delta V, that is the volume of that element. Now if you check out the volume of this fluid element with varying delta V, if you vary delta V, you will find the volume is different. Now you will say how it is going to happen. Perhaps I will say if you go for a very small value of delta V, that is also not constant with respect to time also. Even with respect to time that density is going to vary. How it is? For one moment, just consider for one moment, at one particular instant, I will say this density is equals to, this is delta M, that I will say the number of molecules into the molecular mass of the molecule divided by delta V. So this will be the formula, the modified formula of this one. So n, capital N is the number of molecules into this space into m0 is the molecular mass of this element. Now at one particular instant there are only 3 molecules into this space. So 3 molecules multiplied by whatever the molecular mass of that molecule divided by whatever its volume is. But at the next moment, see, all these molecules, for example, every molecule over here is randomly moving in any random direction with any velocity that we have already seen. Any molecule is going in any direction, that too in the random direction with variable velocities, right? And every molecule is colliding with one another and they are transferring their momentums, transferring their energies, right? So at one particular instant, the number of molecules over here are 3, but just at the next moment, this may be possible that this molecule is coming into the space and the number of molecules into this region may become 4. Will it change? Yes, it will. This density will change. Just at the next moment, due to the collision, say this molecule entered and collided with this molecule, so and that too in the 2 dimensions, so this molecule may go in this direction, this molecule may go in this direction, and both the molecule can go out of that volume, so the only 2 molecules remain into that volume element, so the density will again reduce. So for that small elemental volume delta V, I cannot say volume is this much, that volume may change with respect to time. And if I try to get that value, there is a wide variation in the volume, the magnitude of the volume. For example, the density of the fluid rho with respect to delta V, if I vary delta V, at very small volumes, at very small values of delta V, if I try to measure the volume, at some time I may get the density to be equal to this much. Maybe at the next moment, or say if I increase, see, even at this volume, you cannot make sure that the density is this much. At one instant it may be this much, at the next instant it may be this much, at the next instant it may be this much. I told you how does it happen. This is due to the movement of the molecules inside that region. Inside that region, right? So at one moment, at a very small value of delta V, the density is found to be this much. If I go for little increment in delta V, you will get the densities are having these values. A wide variation into it, say somewhere over here, say next volume again here, next one over here, 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 here and here. So if you go for a very small elemental volume, there is a wide variation in the density of the fluid, and after certain region, after certain volume delta, after certain magnitude of delta V, let us say delta V star, here onwards the density is going to become almost constant. It is not going to change. It's not going to change. So here there is a huge variation. You can see the variation of the density in this region is higher. Over here it is this much, over here it is this much, over here, here, and slowly it is reducing. Slowly it is reducing. And from a certain volume, there onwards the density is constant, and in some cases it may increase also. In some cases it may increase also. Now see, if we are considering one system whose volume is more than this delta V star, then we can say that fluid is continuum. I mean, on an average we can take down the magnitude of the density. So in that case, if I take down the density in this region or say this region, it will not get affected. But for that, delta V star has to be that much larger. Now how much larger, that we will see. I mean, with the aid of some mathematical equation, that we will see. With the aid of some mathematical constant, one constant is there that is going to define what should be the magnitude of delta V. But this is the case. Now here onwards we can say the fluid to be a continuum. Here onwards the fluid is considered as the continuum, that is the continuous one. There is no breakdown in between it, right? So if I take down, see the same example, I can explain it over here. If I take down a large number of, little larger volume over here, then the number of molecules which are coming into the space, into that volume and leaving it, that will not affect, since the number of molecules inside it will be very large, right? So that's what the concept of continuum is. Now in another way we can explain it, and that is, Knudsen number. Now what is this Knudsen number? We will see. Before I proceed to Knudsen number, I would like to give you one example. I would like to clear out one more concept. You might have studied that. That is the mean free path of a molecule. If I take down any gas into a container and if I observe any one of the molecules, say one molecule over here, molecule under observation is over here. Now obviously as it is into the gaseous state, so the molecule will continuously keep on moving from here to there to there with certain velocities. Velocity will also, again, that velocity basically depends upon how much momentum is imparted onto it and how much is the overall temperature of the gas. Now when this molecule is going randomly in any direction, say here to here it is going, and here is going, it is going to collide with another molecule. Next it is get deviated in this direction and started to move over here. Here it is again collided with another molecule. Next it diverted over here. Here it is going to collide with another molecule. Next it is going over this side. Here it is going to collide with another molecule. Here it is going to collide with another molecule. So in this way that molecule is continuously moving in any random direction with variable velocity. Variable in the sense during two successive collision velocity is constant, but once there is a collision there will be the change in velocity in the direction as well as in the magnitude also. So if this is taking place, then I will say the distance covered by the molecule from one collision to another collision is say lambda 1. The distance between these two successive collisions is say lambda 2, like that lambda 3, like that lambda 4 and so on. If I take down the average of all these free lengths or say the free paths traveled by a molecule in two successive collisions, I will be getting somewhat average value of lambda, and that average value of lambda we say it as the mean free path. Mean free path and represented by the letter lambda. Mean free path is represented by letter lambda. That lambda depends upon, the magnitude of the lambda depends upon how much is the pressure, how much is the number density. Of course the number density of the molecules will again depends upon the pressure, the temperature and some other parameters. But normally if you look at the atmospheric air, that is in the range of 10 to the power minus 8, 10 to the power minus 9 meters something, right. Now there is one constant, we say it as Knudsen constant. Knudsen number. It is represented by Kn. This Knudsen number is defined as, it is the ratio of the mean free path of the molecule divided by the characteristics length of that container. Now if I consider a pipe over here, there is somewhat pipe over here, and that for this pipe there is somewhat fluid flowing into this. Now for this fluid flow there are certain molecules into the fluid flow, let's say the gases, and that gas molecule while it is flowing in that direction continuously keep on colliding with one another in this way, that way, and that is going ahead like this. So in zigzag manner it will keep on colliding with one another, and for that various collisions, if I try to get the mean free path lambda for that particular molecule, any one molecule, and the characteristics length or the characteristic diameter over here as d, then I will say Knudsen number as Kn is equals to lambda by d. Now, for a fluid to be considered as a continuum, we must have this value to be very, very less than 1. To be specific, I will say if lambda by d is less than 0.01, I will say that is the continuum. That fluid flow can be considered as a continuum. But in a case if that is greater than Knudsen number, then we cannot treat that fluid as a continuum. See, when it can happen for a fluid, a Knudsen number, I can say that there is a somewhat region into the fluid. Here are the molecules which are closely packed, at the pressure, at atmospheric pressure. So here are the molecules, and that gas is at the atmospheric pressure, and if it is so, then all these molecules are packed very close to one another. So if any of the molecule is colliding with the adjacent or say in any direction, so it is going to collide in this way, in this way, in this way, this way, this way. So there will be somewhat value of lambda, that is the mean free path. But for the same gas, if I increase the volume and reduce up the pressure drastically, instead of having this much volume, if I increase the volume drastically, the molecules will get separated out far away from each other. So in that case, while molecules are moving with certain velocity, so this one, it will collide with this one, in this direction. So over here, lambda is larger. Lambda, the mean free path, will be larger, and hence the Knudsen number will be larger, and in that case we cannot say that fluid as a continuum. In that case, so this is the case in case of rarefied gas flow. For example, if we go at the height of about 100 km above the earth's surface, then the Knudsen number is over there is close to 0.01, and there above that level we cannot say the gas over there as a continuum. There is a variation in it. It may continuously keep on changing, right? So that's all about the Knudsen number. So I think we should stop over here. Rest of the topics we will continue into the next lecture. Thank you.